Hi, Sarah, and hi, everyone. Thank you for the really nice introduction. I'm not all that. I think I don't know. I'm just an eyewitness, and I've been just observing my surroundings and observing myself over the last few years. And sometimes I think I have the courage to maybe share it with the public, knowing that it might come on a high price. The fact that I don't know what's going on exactly in the Middle East. I just see the news like everyone else. I was there recently, actually when the kidnapping of the 3 Israeli teenagers in the West Bank. I was in Israel at that time, and I left a few days before the Gaza crisis started. When I was young, during the first Palestinian Intifada, I witnessed lots of bloodshed and killing. We used to live next to the cemetery of Ramallah, and most of the victims of the first Intifada were buried just basically next door, and I witnessed their corpses. I witnessed the violence. I myself was kidnapped by Israeli settlers for throwing stones at their cars. My father was arrested when I was 9 years old for the first time. I took responsibility for my family at a very young age. So basically, as a family, we paid very high price since the first Palestinian Intifada, then the second Palestinian Intifada, and what was in between. My father was arrested for 16 times by the Israeli defense forces. And I didn't know what was going on at that time. I couldn't see a bigger picture. I saw only through the lens of a child growing up on the Palestinian streets. Now, later on, for my father's position as a founder and a leader in Hamas organization, I was exposed to the organization secrets. I was exposed to the motives of its leaders. Then I learned about the motive of other rival Palestinian factions like Fatah, Islamic Jihad. And I was very familiar with their debates and intellectualizations of who's right and what were the right methods to fight what's so-called Israeli occupation. And later on, as Sarah said, without going through details of my motives, why I participated or joined the Israeli intelligence at some point, because we are very limited on time. I learned more about the Palestinian factions. I learned more about the Palestinian corruption. I learned more about the Palestinian greed that basically is based on bloodshed. Simply, if Palestinian children stop dying in the Palestinian territories, whether it was Gaza or the West Bank, most of those guys would be out of business. And in order for them to continue in business, more bloodshed has to happen. Do they care for the Palestinian kids? From my point of view, and based on real knowledge of what's going on, you know, to be part of the intelligence service for about 10 years, basically, we knew what was going on in Yasser Arafat offices. We knew what was going on in Hamas office. We knew what was going on in the Public Front for Liberating Palestine offices. I knew the secret lives of most of the public figures who lead what's so-called the Palestinian cause. And it really breaks my heart, you know, to see children still dying and confused and afraid. And now a whole generation is prepared to hate more and to seek revenge. Yasser Arafat at some point was sitting in Tunisia spending hundreds of millions of dollars that was sent from Saudi Arabia and from other Arab countries to his personal bank account. And the same thing now we are witnessing about Khalid Mash'al, Musa Abu Marzouk, and the rest of the Palestinian leadership. While, the Gaza children are dying. When the Gaza crisis started, Hamas leaders disappeared. They knew how to hide themselves, and they put the Gaza children in front of the Israeli cannons, Israeli tanks. This is their bravery, and this is what a real evidence of their claim that they are really fighting for the sake of the Palestinian children and the Palestinian cause. I don't think that any of those guys is motivated by morality or by a noble cause, and I'm sad to say this. And I think they need to be fought. They need to be fought not by Israel, not by the international community alone. They need to be fought, first of all, by the Palestinian people. When there is an awareness and the Palestinian children start to realize that the enemy, the worst enemy that they're facing is their leadership that continues to repeat the same mistake again and again and again. And the least of their concern is the human who live in that system. Hamas organization profits from the death of the Palestinian children. First of all, to get sympathy from the Arab world, who basically the majority of people see Israel as an enemy and a strange body in that region. They see Israel or the Israeli values unfit for that culture, which makes it unacceptable, and they reject it strongly. Israel adopts the Western values. Israel adopts democracy, freedom of religion. We see in Israel Muslims, Jewish, Christians, Arabs. Everybody is demonstrating their religious freedoms. We see Arabs in the Israeli Knesset, and they're protected by the constitution. They're protected by the government. And in the Arab world, we don't see acceptance for anything that is Jewish or anything that is Israeli. I don't want to go through lots of details. I'm sure that many of you are aware of the situation and what's going on. But when Hamas push children to die, as they used to send many children in the West Bank to the checkpoints, ask them to leave their schools and go to the checkpoints, confront with the Israeli soldiers, throwing stones. Several children would die, and this is how the Second Palestinian Intifada continued. This is how they brought people down to the street. This is how they brought condemnation against the state of Israel. And Hamas, since the first, second, and third Gaza wars, learned that this is the way to make Israel's best friends become its worst enemies. And this is what Hamas consider as a victory. And I think as free people in the free world who believe in democracy, I'm not talking about political systems right now. I'm talking about concepts, values, and fundamentals. I personally stand with Israel in this fight, because what is the alternative? A dark organization or organizations that are going to come and bring absolute control of religion over the Middle East region. Israel is, all of us know that Israel is the real democracy in the region. And if Israel fails in this war against dark organizations like Hamas, which, basically Hamas organization does not separate between religion and politics. Actually, Hamas organization, before it's a political party and claims that it's a national organization, a Palestinian organization, Hamas, first of all, is a religious, ideological organization that does not have political borders. Hamas' ultimate goal is not to establish a Palestinian state. If Hamas' goal was to establish a Palestinian state, by now they would have a Palestinian state. Unfortunately, Hamas's organization ultimate goal is to destroy the state of Israel and build an Islamic state on the rubble of the state of Israel. And in a case like this, nobody can fulfill their ambition. Nobody can satisfy their wants. And basically, we need to be aware of this very important point. Hamas hijacked what's so-called the Palestinian cause, infiltrated the Palestinian society with their sick ideology, and now it's spread like a cancer, and the whole nation is cut in their trap. Whenever Hamas decides to inflame the situation, everybody has to pay the price. And I believe that this has to be faced with unity, understanding what Hamas stands for, what Israel stands for. And there is no way in the middle, I guess. What Israel has been doing against Hamas organization is probably the best thing for Palestinians, first of all. And I hope at some point Palestinians will realize the danger of Hamas, as, for example, Egyptians right now. They actually choose a dictatorship rather than the rule of the Muslim Brotherhood, and which is explains, how much people are afraid of religious authorities taking over the region. And I hope at some point Palestinians will have the courage to go down the streets and fight against Hamas and throw them out of the rule. These are like the main points that I would like to share with you guys, and I prefer now to open the door or the window for questions and answers. Please feel free to ask me anything that comes to your minds. And thank you for being here.
Okay. Yesterday there was another unfortunate attack on an UNRWA school. As you said, you're not there on the ground. It is dreadful when we see the casualties, and all of us really cry inside when we see children being killed. There were 10 people that were killed in yesterday's attack. Jan Psaki of the State Department had called Israel's actions here disgraceful. As you said, we are not there on the ground, but you probably have more inside knowledge of how Hamas operates than anyone else here in the United States. Based on your knowledge of how Hamas operates, what would you speculate happened there? And this is just conjecture because you're not there on the ground.
Well, first of all, I'm not the most knowledgeable person about Hamas situation in Gaza in the United States. There is CIA, there is intelligence services. I'm sure that they have solid sources within the movement in Gaza, and they know exactly what's going on. Now, the problem, when Hamas invites Israel for this type of war, and actually they force Israel to have no choice but to bring its forces inside Gaza Strip. They knew beforehand what the result is gonna be. There is no way to avoid civilians' casualties in Gaza Strip. It doesn't matter what army is that, whether it was the U.S. army, the Israeli army, or even a French army. It's gonna be the same result. The Gaza Strip is one of the most populated spots on the face of the earth, and there is no way to avoid that. And honestly, at moments like this, war is ugly, and people in decision making, they cannot be emotional about situations like this. On a personal level, what's going on breaks my heart. But this is a time for all of us to be clear and to be strong. And instead of just having halfway solutions and try to find the quick fix like every time. The first Palestinian war, everybody was talking about truce. Okay, the first Gaza war, the second Gaza war happened, the third Gaza war. And how many Gaza wars are going to happen before we fix the fundamental problem? We have a bunch of criminals. We have a bunch of terrorists that have taken over Gaza, and all of us know that they took Gaza by force. Actually, what Hamas militants... Sarah, I hear an echo. Is there like a way to fix that, please? So in Hamas organization, basically, when they took over Gaza Strip, they used RPGs. They used all type of weapons that they're using right now, including missiles, against their rival party, Fatah. This is how Hamas have internal Palestinian dialogue, by gun. And I just want to remind, it's like all of us, how Hamas took over the Gaza Strip. I myself saw on some of the videos Hamas militants throwing Fatah members, which is their rivals, from the 20th floor alive. This is how they dealt with their rival movement. Those guys don't care about Palestinians, and they killed hundreds of Fatah members. They executed many of them, and actually, if you think about other movements like the Salafi movement, they surrounded them in the mosque and they killed about 55 of them inside the mosque. And the imam was saying, guys, we worship the same God. What are you doing? Please stop firing. And they kept firing until they killed. Any of you can go to YouTube and find, Hamas dealt with other Palestinian factions and their rivals in Gaza Strip. It gives you an idea that this movement basically will keep taking the region to self-destruction. And today it's not the time to just... Hamas is looking for a truce. They're looking for a short war where they maintain a better position and they get more recognition and they enjoy to see the United States, instead of playing an ally of Israel during this time of war, they are happy to see the United States president becoming a mediator. So basically, there was no way to avoid the civilian casualties. And I'm sorry to say, if we will continue the war against the Hamas organization, there will be more civilian casualties. But this is war, and the war is ugly. I honestly don't know. I know that there is a minority of Christians who live in Gaza. I have not been in touch with any of them, so I don't know exactly what's going on. I hope that they were not like many other innocent people in the Strip were caught up in the exchanging of fire between Hamas and Israel. But I can't imagine, it's like how those minority will live under radical Islamic movement regime. This is it's not going to be a fun experience. I'm sure that they are stripped out of their freedoms, and I hope that they are okay. As you know, I hope that many innocent people in Gaza also. Not everybody is Hamas in Gaza. Those people, many of those people immigrated their farms 60 years ago because the Arab countries asked them to do so. They said, evacuate, we want to come and kill all the Jews, then you will be able to go back to your farms and your villages. So all those people left their lands and went to the Gaza Strip and the West Bank in refugee camps, waiting for the Arabs to come and kill the Jews. Well, the Arabs eventually failed their attempt to destroy the newborn state of Israel. And now we have this refugees problem. And to look at those people, been waiting for 60 years right now, and now bombarded, by Israel. How can you show them other truth? Their truth is very distorted, but to them it's very real. And I just pray, that we'll be able to do things that can heal that region. What's going on is devastating, and I don't blame. It's very hard to tell, but in the meantime, we need to take in consideration, that Hamas is the one who initiated this war, and Hamas is the only party that is profiting out of this dirty war. And I hope that at some point we'll be able to communicate those facts and truths to the average person in the Palestinian street. Well, the Hamas organization, in my opinion, is the most dangerous radical Islamic organization. And that also can be said about the Muslim Brotherhood, because the Muslim Brotherhood is the legal mother of Hamas organization. What differentiates between Hamas and the rest of radical Islamic organizations, that Hamas has, first of all, a humanitarian faith or mask. Hamas does not send all its members to fight. Hamas, first of all, believes in building infrastructure, hospitals, schools, charity committees. They have mosques. They have what's called da'wah, which is preaching Islam. They have a solid ideology, and they have much more balanced system than Al-Qaeda or other organizations. Al-Qaeda, for example, or Islamic Jihad, believe in leaving everything behind and immigrating for the cause of Allah and Islam, to fight. So they ask doctors, teachers, everybody to leave everything that they're doing and immigrate. Now, Hamas does not believe in this strategy, and this is why Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood are always criticized by other radical Islamic movements. That they say, you're just getting yourself busy in social work, you're not fighters. And this is like an internal debate. If you look closely to the fine distinctions between those radical movements. So Hamas organization does not have only a military wing. They have a military wing, they have a social wing, they have political wing, they have security wing. And all those wings don't infiltrate with each other. They don't cross the lines, especially the military wing. My father has been a top Hamas leader since the beginning, and he has no idea what's going on in the dynamics of the military wing. It's a top secret organization within the organization itself, and this is what I believe, what keeps them alive, and this is what makes them very hard to deal with. This is what makes them very strong, and as you see now, they infiltrated the whole society with their ideology. People adopted their ideology. They voted for them in elections, and they have a strong military wing in the same time. And in order to destroy their military wing, you have to destroy a whole society, basically. And this is why it's who knows, how long it's gonna take, before Palestinian people awake from this coma. And I hope it's the only hope. The only hope is to educate Palestinians and encourage them to fight against Hamas ideology. The change has to come from within. From within. Well, first of all, I choose to live free, and I did not receive any direct threat from Hamas or from any other radical organization. I move freely. I keep low profile. Some people sometimes recognize me in the street, and I feel safe. I don't feel threatened. Since the publication of my autobiography, Son of Hamas, I did not speak to my parents because they disowned me publicly. And since that moment, I have not spoken to my parents. So basically, this is my life right now, and I think I need to just accept it. I'm happy with the choices I made. It's not an easy thing to go against a whole society or an ideology, especially when it's like this. But this is, sometimes the price we have to pay to emancipate ourselves and free our souls. I choose to write my own scripts in life. I choose to stay independent, and I choose to stand for my truth. And again, I don't claim that I have the supreme truth. It has been an ongoing process of growth, transformation. It's a conscious evolution. And I am very grateful to many gurus and many enlightened people who helped my conscience to evolve, especially Jesus Christ, especially Mahatma Gandhi, Krishnamacharya, Patabi Joyce, the unknown philosophers of the East, and the known philosophers of the West. I was inspired by all those. This is like what has been inspiring me spiritually, and the journey just started, in my opinion. I try to stay away from politics, because it's very limited, and I don't want to be limited to its boundaries. But in situations like this, the man cannot be silent. I'm very familiar with the sides of the conflict. I identify with all of them. I have friends on the Israeli side that I consider today a family, and I'm very concerned about them from Hamas missiles. In the meantime, I have biological brothers and sisters who live in the heart of the conflict. Maybe I don't talk to them today, but also I understand their conflict and their struggle. And unfortunately, everybody is living in their own cave, and I hope that at some point people will have the courage to stand up and say enough is enough and see higher truth for themselves. But thank you for your question. Appreciate it. I really don't know, brother. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that, the Jordanian situation and its politics. All I know that the Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan, they choose a peaceful way for their to achieve their goals. And this is why they get criticism always from the Muslim Brotherhood in the Palestinian territories. And at some point, the Muslim Brotherhood in the region is not going to be silent. And I'm afraid, actually, mostly not for Jordan from the Muslim Brotherhood. I think at some point we might find that those new radical movements coming from Iraq, the ISIS, I'm concerned a little because Jordan, they can take over the whole country in a matter of hours if they choose to. And it's a matter of time right now. And actually, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt are not going to be silent forever for the military takeover. This is not the first time a dictator, comes and oppress the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. We witnessed that during the Jamal Abdel Nasser days when he assassinated Hassan al-Banna, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. Then Sadat came to the picture. He oppressed the movement. Then Hosni Mubarak came, and now we have Sisi. And throughout all the history of the organization, which is, I'm very familiar with the debates within the movement, that how long the giant Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt will continue to be silent. And I'm sure that there are strong voices right now within the movement of considering the military and the violent option against those dictatorships. Now, if Hamas wins the war, or at least if it appears to them that they won the war in Gaza Strip, what's going to happen? This is going to inspire the Muslim Brotherhood to follow the lead of Hamas, that only force and violence can help them achieve their goals. The Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and Jordan, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of members, strong members, ideological members who choose death over life, or they love to die more than they love to live. This is not a secret. All of us have seen it. We see Hamas military guys, they're suicidal. And it's very hard to predict what's going to be in the future. This is like a negative way to see it, but sometimes we need to face it and to face its reality and prepare for what's going to be next. Unfortunately, I don't see the Muslim Brotherhood taking all these hits in Egypt and continue to be silent forever. So let's see how things will go. But we keep in mind that their silence in Jordan, their silence in Egypt, what's happening now in Iraq, what's happening now in Gaza, it's all connected. And at some point, if we don't unify as democratic countries, as free world, I'm not talking about political point of views right now, because many of the Palestinians also share the same values that we share today. So they are not our enemies. They are our allies. And we need, to find those people and bring the unity to face a radical, sick ideology that is not only against Israel, not only against Palestinians or Americans, it's against humanity. And I hope that we get it before it's too late and we prepare ourselves for days like this day. Well, thank you for your question. Again, I'm not an organization, I'm not a politician, and I'm not a decision maker, and I choose not to be. I don't have a magical solution for this situation. It's very complicated. I don't know how strong intellectualizations can be right now in the face of rainy bombs on the heads of civilians, and I don't know if this can be effective at the moment, but I believe that the governments who have the institutions and they have the budgets, they have the power, they can do many things through TV, through radio, through internet, filmmaking, books. Maybe if they just try to give people some freedom, when they stand for something that has meaning in it, that the governments don't fight it. That would be maybe a good step to start with. When I first came here to the United States of America and I started speaking out about the situation, we got criticized from Christian groups, Muslim groups, Jewish groups, Zionists, extremist Muslims. The U.S. government wanted to deport me. And I was like, truly like, if you try to make any difference in this world, everybody's going to be your enemy. Everyone. I appreciate, friends who came along my journey and they supported and they sustained me. And when I was facing deportation, especially people like Sarah Stern and many others, actually, who took a position to support me. But I'm saying, like, if there was like someone who lost everything, I'm not saying this to complain or to even tell you about my own struggle. I'm happy with my struggle. It makes me stronger every day. But when we show the Middle Eastern region that here is someone who came from there and they choose to do a different thing in life and choose a different path, a higher path. Look what happens to them. We smash them. We destroy them. We spread lies about them. And we don't give them a moment to breathe. This is what we do. So with that said, I think it's every individual's responsibility. And sometimes we might tell the truth to a whole generation about what's going on, but will they have the strength to stand for their truth if they see it? So this is every individual's decision. Sometimes we have to give up everything, including our families, including our ego, including our physical body, if needed, for our freedoms. And I hope that this example will encourage a new generation in the Middle East to think for themselves and to stand for what they believe. Political solution, that's possible. Probably like prepare the environment for conscience evolution. We can do that. Like this is why I support the state of Israel, because when I go to the Israeli model, I see that at least people have the right to demonstrate their faith. And this model, in my opinion, is much better than the Hamas model or the Arab model that basically does not allow the human conscience to evolve. This is why I stand by the state of Israel. Not because I'm a Zionist, not because I'm into the politics. It's because the democratic model is the best model so far for the evolvement of the human conscience. So basically, it's every individual responsibility, and I hope that we'll be able to communicate better in the future with this new generation. For the last couple of years, the relationship between Iran and Hamas went the wrong direction for Hamas because of the Syrian situation. Hamas did not stand by al-Assad regime, who was supportive of Hamas organization for many years. And you know that Iran is an ally with Syria and Hezbollah. And for that new Hamas position, their relationship with Iran was affected badly. I think now the relationship after the Gaza war became better. Iran gave Hamas funds from the early beginning of the establishment of the movement. They did not do this over the last couple of years, which, you know, put Hamas in a very difficult financial situation, which eventually, by the way, led to this crisis in Gaza, because Hamas had a financial situation. They could not pay their employees. And Egypt closed many of the tunnels. So basically Hamas had no choice but to launch a war against Israel in order to get a better negotiation position with the other powers in the region, not with Israel. They wanted Egypt to be blamed. They wanted the Palestinian Authority to be blamed. They wanted everybody to get involved in the situation, and I think they achieved their goal. Now everybody is becoming Hamas's spokesman. And when we talk about Qatar and Turkey, by the way, it's like I know I forgot to answer this question. We cannot have them as mediators in this situation. They are a side. Qatar gives Hamas tens of millions of dollars. But also I ask myself, you know, why the United States of America has not taken a very strong position against Qatar, knowing, you know, that they officially give Hamas money. And maybe because Qatar gave the United States also money. When Katrina happened, I remember Qatar gave the United States of America $1 billion donation. So when powers like this, you know, rich countries in the region, give the United States of America money, and they give a terrorist organization like Hamas money, this is where, you know, politics gets complicated. So Iran gives Hezbollah, gives Hamas, then they change their mind, then things change again, then they give Hamas again. It's part of the dirty political game in the region. I think so. I got it. But you're asking me like also some people lack love. You know, how I'm gonna make them love. You know, or some people lack they don't know how to forgive. How I'm gonna make them forgive. This is a decision maker. It depends on the decision making, and it depends on every individual's level of consciousness. If they live in a falsehood and their consciousness calibrates below the level of truth, basically this is what we're going to be facing all the time. Shame, pride, revenge, fear, guilt. Those are the falsehood of human conscience. And this is this is a human condition. You know, and the human condition cannot be fixed by a political solution. Again, I said political solution can prepare the environment, and this is there is no quick fix for fundamental problems like this. I cannot make someone brave if they are cowards to their core. How I'm gonna make a person like this? Maybe I can inspire them somehow by example, by doing the right thing. by standing for what's true, by fighting against what's false. More than this, they have to perceive it. If their perception is distorted now, and for example, many people see me as a hero, it's their perception. I don't claim that. And many others see me as a traitor. I'm not that either. It's a matter of perception, and it all depends on the level of consciousness of every individual. I know this is not the right time to talk about the problem from a spiritual point of view, but what we need at least, if there is a radical ideology, we need to say it out loud. When I say that Islam, to me, it's a cult. I don't differentiate between radical Islam and Islam itself. I think Islam is a sick idea, and there are many Muslims who are captives in this ideology. And the strength of those radical Islamic movements, that they mix between their Islamic ideology and their political life, and this is like putting more oil on the fire. And so we need at least, it's like if there is any regime in the Middle East that mix between religion and politics, to tell them, hey, you have to separate this, otherwise, we won't be able to work together. You won't be our allies. But again, if those people are rich, and they have tons of oil, and our banking system is relying on them, and our government is relying on them, I don't know all the facts. I'm just like, this is an assumption. So this will lead for compromise. When I see President Barack Obama, which I personally like as a person, I like him as a person. And I've been supportive of him. But when I see his position, he's left without choices. I saw him the last press conference. He was exhausted. Because politics is very limited. I don't want to be in his position, and I don't think if you bring the most enlightened person in the world and put him in such a position, he's going to be limited to the books, the bars, the politics, and many other limitations. So basically, like, we need to speak more to artists, writers, thinkers, filmmakers, journalists, creative people, and try to influence people to think for themselves, to be able to transcend their own barriers, to transcend their own conscience and their own mind. This is the human condition that we are facing. And by the way, this is not a Middle Eastern problem. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, if you look at it with all its dimensions, it's basically represent the human condition and the limitations of the mind. If you take an American and throw them in that situation, they're going to start thinking either like Palestinians or like Israelis. And soon they will adopt one of the theories. So these are the deeper issues that I don't have a magical solution for them. And I personally went through all this struggle just to get myself over the surface. And I hope, I pray that a whole new generation will have the strength to be able to free themselves. Well, first of all, Hamas did not lose Egypt because the biggest organization in Egypt is the Muslim Brotherhood. And those people, the well-trained, well-organized, and ideologically motivated, excuse my English. Now, what's happening right now in Egypt, this is not the end of the story, as I said. And Hamas does not count only on Egypt. Hamas counts on itself. They know that they can dig tunnels. They know that they can build their own weapons. They know what it means to put the Jewish nation under their fire. And they know the impact of that on not only the region, but the rest of the world. and this is, why their missiles cannot be taken in an easy way. It's a very dangerous political weapon in their hands. And Hamas, since day one, is a very independent movement. I remember from the early days of Hamas, when they did not have funds from Iran or from other countries, each Hamas member used to donate 10% of their income for the movement. And I think they are willing to do this again and again to survive, because Hamas is, again, it's an ideological movement that they like to work with countries and powers in the region. And now it's becoming more political movement. But at the end of the day, if they have to go back to the choice of depending completely on their own pocket, they will do it for a while. But in the meantime, they will just create international crisis like this, where, allies become enemies, and we start to see their dirty laundry all over the news and accusing each other, and instead of unifying and fighting the good fight together. Is it really Israel who bombed the school? I don't know. When I used to work for the Israeli intelligence, sometimes we had high-profile terrorists, and the goal was to arrest them or assassinate them. And they had their 6-year-old daughter in the car, and the whole operation stopped. Well, even though those people Israel were looking for them for years. So I don't know how to actually explain that Israel would target, a United Nations school that has hostages in it, or like people, immigrants, hiding from the missiles. I don't see this happening, especially when Israel knows the international condemnation after that. Was there a mistake? That's possible. I told you, like in a war like this, there is no way to avoid civilian casualties. It's not about Israel. It's not about the U.S. It's about the nature of any dirty war like this. So basically, mistakes happen that could happen. This does not change my view of the state of Israel as a constitution, does not change my position and my stand behind the Israeli Defense Forces morality. Let's not forget that since its establishment, the state of Israel, 99% of the wars that happened, Israel did not initiate any war. The wars were initiated against Israel, and Israel had to respond. So basically, Israel does not have interest in war. Apparently, the rest of the countries, the surrounding countries, have the interest in war. Yeah, and for the United Nations, before they criticize Israel, if they have the courage, let them criticize Qatar, or maybe because Qatar is a very rich country and everybody has some interest with Qatar, it's very hard for them to criticize it. I would like to see some balance, in situations like this. But again, it's politics, it's limited, it's subjective to change the next few hours. I hope that Palestinians just demonstrate more, that instead of using violence. That would be healthier, I guess. We'll let them demonstrate. Why? Is it bothering you that they demonstrate? Let them express themselves, even though their truth is distorted. As long as they're not breaking the law, as long as they're not violent, I hope that they demonstrate more. They want to spread lies. It's the fault of who believe them, This is a free country, and this is like I find your question actually strange a little. So let people demonstrate, let them express their freedoms, even if their truth is not similar to ours. Well, unfortunately, the military option was the only option when Hamas kidnaps, teenagers and kill them and bury them. When Hamas launch missiles and again put a whole nation under the range of their missiles. There is like people going to their schools. Schools stopped. Everybody's running to shelters. Then in times like this, unfortunately, force becomes the only option. And it's a natural thing. It's the rule of nature. It's not a creative thing. Now, regarding to talking to Hamas moderate people, it doesn't matter. My father, I consider him probably the most moderate person in the movement, but unfortunately, every time he will hit the ideological and political walls of the movement, and he's always limited to the lines of the movement. There are certain lines. It doesn't matter how moderate or how pragmatic you are. You have to respect those lines. Just like any corporate, you could be creative and come up with the best idea, but the corporate sets some rules that you cannot cross, and you have to respect that. So now, those people would be better if they were operating in different systems. But within that system, the Hamas system, it doesn't matter how moderate or pragmatic they are. At the end of the day, they submit to the limitations of the ideology. I think this is not the end of the war in Gaza. From my experience, I think Israel is up to something, maybe something creative, to deal with the Hamas leadership. As you see, Israel did not sit down other side of the table with Hamas for truce, which means that this is an open war, which means that the Hamas leadership will be targeted, and this might take like a long time. It's an open war between Israel and Hamas. What Hamas did in Gaza, basically, they unified the Israeli street behind one idea: to hit the enemy hard, anybody who threatens the Jewish nation. Second, they killed any chance of establishing a Palestinian state in the West Bank. This is something, there is no Israeli leader that will come to agree for this. And did Hamas do this on a purpose? Did Hamas do this not knowing what they're doing? We let this for time to answer. I think the war did not end. I think the war actually started. And I'm happy that Israel withdrew from the urban areas to avoid as much as they can casualties among civilians. But I see this is gonna escalate, and we're gonna witness a bunch of assassinations and things like this. This is not based on any knowledge that I have, but it's based on my knowledge of how Israel deals with this type of situations. So we hope that in the meantime, Palestinian people will realize the danger of Hamas against their cause. If they really want to build a Palestinian state, or at least live in harmony in that region with the state of Israel, they need to respect the state of Israel, its right of existence, and accept this reality.